Hi, I'm here to talk about, we're going to talk about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I want you to understand the concept of it, and then I want you to understand how valuable it is. Now, what I'm about to share with you is some teaching material, and then I'll be happy to answer some questions. If you want to put a comment in there, I can respond to your comments. But my goal here is to help parents understand more about this, and then have some very specific heart-based strategies to deal with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So what I'm trying to do here is give you some very practical biblical tools that you can use in order to help your children deal with this very important concept of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, I work with children who have this challenge and have a lot of success with it, and that's why I thought I'd do a live to give you some ideas of how you could also work with your children to help them deal with the challenges that they face in their situation. So we'll talk about what ADHD is a little bit, but then I want to jump right into some heart-based practical strategies. This presentation will take about 30 minutes, and I'll be able to answer questions from you in the process if you have any questions for me. I'm Dr. Scott Turansky. I am a professor at Concordia University where I teach the master's level program for parenting. So I'm regularly working with students who in my class, each one of them has to work with a parent. I also train coaches through the National Center for Biblical Parenting. And when I'm doing that, I am training, I've trained over 500 of them. And each one of them, as they're in my training, must work with a parent. Many of those clients, as you might imagine, have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So we're doing a lot to try to help these children make some significant changes in their lives. And so the solutions I'm going to give you work. I know they work because we do them with all kinds of children, and we work hard to bring about some major change in a lot of the children that we deal with. So this is a very important concept. It's an important one for me because a lot of the kids I work with, and I have my own clients, and we work through an 8-week program and see major changes. That's through the Biblical Parenting Coaching Program. If you want to know more about that program, you can go to biblicalparenting.coach. That's one of my 7 websites that I have, and you'll be directed right into that, those kinds of things that are going on. So, hey, I'm glad a number of people have joined, and welcome. I'm glad you're joining. Just say hi. Tell me where you're from. I'd appreciate that if I know. And if you would tell me the age of your child, then I could target some of my comments to the age of your children to make sure that the applications that I'm presenting to you are relevant. The things I'm about to share with you work. And so let me jump in now. And I want to talk about ADHD, and because ADHD is a brain issue, it's a biological challenge, but can we use a heart-based approach to address brain issues or biological issues? And the answer is yes, we can. So the goal here is to use some character-based solutions to work with children who have a biological challenge. Now, many parents, because their children have they believe their children have ADHD, ask this question of me. And so I'm going to answer this question first. Do I need to get my child diagnosed? Well, the diagnosis of ADHD is helpful in 2 areas. One is if you're trying to get special services from the school or an IEP or something, then a diagnosis is going to be helpful. Secondly, you're going to want to get a diagnosis if you're trying to get medication. So if those are the main 2 reasons that you might want to get a diagnosis. But I rely on parents because I believe in parents, and I believe that parents are the best counselors for their children if they have a good plan. And my whole job here is helping parents have a good plan and designing a strategy so we're not just reacting to the problem. So the strategies I'm going to share with you will be very helpful for you as you're trying to develop a plan for working with your child. So if a parent tells me my child, I believe, has ADHD, I says, well, you don't have to get him diagnosed. Let's just treat him as if he does because we can help him. So let me first talk to you about 3 causes of behavioral challenges in children. This is important because sometimes parents in our world really compartmentalizes the problems and then only chooses solutions in that category. So one of the causes, these are biblical causes for problems. For example, biological causes. That's where ADHD fits in, autism fits in there. other kinds of biological issues. In fact, things like I'm hungry or I'm tired are ways that, even as adults, we can experience behavioral challenges. So biological challenges are one of the causes. You remember in the Bible, Elijah was just worn out and he's complaining to God that I'm the only prophet. And what does God say? You need to just go rest, because he's taking this biological challenge that Elijah has. That's why he's complaining, and he sends him off to go to this brook, and he's fed for 40 days before he then interacts with him. So biological challenges are one category of challenges. And frankly, what's happening here So what's happening here when the biological challenge, let me explain to you biologically what's going on in the brain. The neurochemical transmissions in the brain are not functioning fluidly for a child who has ADHD. The space between the neurons, the synapse there, that little space, that's where the chemical transaction is taking place, is not passing on the neurological message that needs to get to the next neuron, at least not doing it efficiently. That's why medication works for these children. So when you give them medication, then whether it's stimulant or non-stimulant medication, it can affect that synapse area and allows for more fluent brain activity to take place. Now, I'm not a medical doctor and I don't prescribe medication, and some of my clients are on medication. I would suggest the main purpose of medication is take the edge off so you can work on some of the things I'm going to teach you about, which are character-based solutions that your children can be involved in. So biological challenges are the first cause that we're talking about behavioral challenges. I'm going to share the second one. Before I do, would you just put in the comments the age of your child so I know what kind of illustrations to use? I work with kids of all ages, whether they're really young, preschool and early elementary, or teenagers. And I even work with parents who have ADHD sometimes. So we know it's a rather difficult challenge. And then if you would just pass this on, if you know someone else who has a child who's rather challenging in this area, let them know about this. Okay, thank you. So we've got a 9-year-old boy, 14-year-old. That's good, good. Well, I'll try to target some of my this. And yes, mom's saying, yes, I have this problem, and so does my 9-year-old son. I get it. And that's very common that we have the problem in the parent and the child. So let's go back here. The first cause of behavioral challenges is biological. The second cause is this, what I call reactive. That is, these are patterns of reacting to life situation. It might be and let me give you a bunch of examples. It could be post-traumatic stress. It could be reactive attachment disorder. It could be oppositional defiant disorder. It could be arguing with mom disorder. These are patterns that children develop when they, as a pattern of reacting to life situations. And when they react to them, then they develop these patterns. And so you have to ask the question, is this arguing problem part of his ADHD issue, his biological issue, or is this a pattern that comes from the ADHD that's more reactive and part of his selfishness? Because we all have selfishness in our lives. And so we have to realize that some of the challenges that come in our child's life are not really caused by the biology. They're caused by some other things that are going on in the dynamic within the family or inside of the child's heart that cause them to do a lot of whining and complaining or have poor social skills or whatever. Sometimes it's biological, sometimes it's reactive. And the third category is spiritual causes. We're just looking at what are the causes of behavioral problems, not causes of ADHD, causes of behavioral problems. One is biological, where ADHD exists, and then also some are reactive, and some problems that children have are spiritual. What I mean by that, I'm not talking about sin or salvation necessarily. I'm talking about the fact that we have this spirit inside of us. That's our identity. It's where we have this self-concept. And some of us with this self-concept believe certain things about ourselves that are not the best. And so that's what I'm talking about, the self-concept of a child. And when we're working in our 8-week program, we target the self-concept, because if we can improve that self-concept, we're dealing with the spiritual side of the child, then it can help us in the other areas as well. Certainly when you become a Christian, your identity changes, and so it fits into that whole category as well. So those are the three causes of behavioral problems. Now, let me show you how they're all kind of related. Because when you have a biological problem like ADHD, then, and there are three main symptoms: impulsivity, lack of focus, and high energy. You may have one or more of those three symptoms that exist. then the child has a biological challenge that they're addressing, okay? And we're trying to address with them. But at the same time now, they have got some other issues where they're being corrected a lot, so now they have a poor response to correction. Or they don't follow instructions well, or whatever it might be. There's these secondary causes that take place that are reactive causes that are developed. And of course, that often leads to spiritual challenges in the heart of a child, because now the child has some spiritual, the identity issues. I'm a troublemaker, or I've got ADHD. And that's why some parents don't like to label their kids, because they're afraid it'll give them some issue in their self-concept that will hinder them from moving forward, or they'll excuse their poor behavior and blame it on something like their ADHD. Other parents will say, I'm going to tell you have ADHD. I'm going to show you how we're going to overcome it. So what you do in that area is up to you. So the three primary causes of attention deficit disorder are impulsivity, lack of focus, and high energy. Those are the three main ones. But then there's all the subcategories of things: anger episodes, electronics addiction, poor social skills, poor response to correction, poor response to following instructions, defiance, inability to complete tasks. All these things, and they affect school, they affect home, and all kinds of things that are challenging. So I'm going to give you now some more ideas about how we're going to deal with this from a heart-based approach, because our heart-based approach is holistic. So as I'm doing this, if you would just put the ages of your children in there, that'd be helpful, so I can see and I can tailor some of my illustrations to that. But also, maybe you know someone who has a child with ADHD that would benefit from this short lecture. It's only 30 minutes long that I'm giving you out of my class that I teach. And so I'm going to share with these things. These are coming out of my own personal experience as I work with kids who have ADHD. We see amazing success in our biblical parenting coaching program. It's powerful. So let me now take you into some solutions. So the solutions that we want to embrace don't just fit into one category. Our goal is to have a holistic approach as we're trying to work on this. If you do decide to use medication, then the goal is to take the edge off, because some children are just really crippled by their inability to focus and attend. And so sometimes parents use medication that way. But the real solutions are going to be in this character development plan that we're working on to try to help children develop a new pattern inside of their heart. Now, just write this down. A character quality is a pattern of thinking and acting in response to a challenge. A pattern of thinking and acting in response to a challenge. That's very important to realize that, because our children already have patterns. In fact, if you want to know if you're working in the heart, then you follow the tendencies of a child. My child has a tendency to argue. My child has a tendency to complain. My child has a tendency to ignore me when I give him instructions. And when that happens, then you end up with some significant challenges with that child. So what we want to do is we want to give some solutions that are going to change the tendencies inside of the heart, so that a child has more strength inside the heart to deal with a biological challenge. That's what we're going to do here, and we're going to help children. I had a 7-year-old boy. I'm going to tell you about this particular boy. He was in my office, and I was working with him because he has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and this boy was struggling at school. And whenever I work with children, I always have the parents in the office, because I believe that parents are the best counselors for their children if they have a good plan. Very important. If they have a good plan, they're not just reacting. I think there's strategic parenting and reactive parenting. If we're just reacting, then it's negative, and our kids suffer under that. But if we have a strategy that we're leading children forward in, then we can move forward in some great ways. So this 7-year-old is in my office, and I'm explaining to him the concept of obligation. Now, this is going to be a key element that you want to help your child understand, whether they're 7 or 17. This idea of obligation is going to be so important. Let me explain to you what obligation is. Obligation is this idea of I need to. Think about those words. I need to. Obligation. It's an uncomfortable feeling that I need to. For example, I need to mow my grass, or I need to pay my bills, or I need to get gas in my car. As an adult, I need to. I have this sense of obligation, but sometimes I don't want to. I don't want to get gas in my car, so I keep driving until the gas gauge goes further down. Or I don't want to mow my grass, so I'm going to wait till it gets a little longer. So because I want to do other things. There's always a wrestling inside of our hearts between obligation and desire. Desires are inside of the heart. The I want to. The Bible says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So we know that desires in the heart that our children have can get them going in a direction that isn't the best. I got to have this, or I want this. And so obligation is going to help overcome that. The I need to. Now, if you think about that, the I need to comes from the conscience, a godly piece of equipment God has placed inside of the human heart, a word used 30 times in the New Testament, and it describes this idea, at least 1/4 of the conscience, one piece of the conscience that we're going to talk about today, has to do with this sense of duty or obligation. I need to. And your conscience, my conscience reminds me I need to mow the grass or whatever it is. It's this I need to. I need to. Now, keep that in mind because that's going to be an important part of what we do. In our coaching program, we're really trying to work on self-concept in a child. We're trying to tie into the equipment that God has already placed inside of a child. That equipment is the conscience and the heart and a place for the Holy Spirit. So we're going to draw on spiritual resources as well. But obligation, let's focus in on that just for a moment. So I was explaining to this 7-year-old boy, I drew a bar graph, and here's the size of clean your room, and here's the size of playing on the iPad. I said, which one's going to work? Which one's going to win? He says, playing on the iPad. I said, that's right. But here's what I'm going to do, and your parents are going to do, as we all work together, and you're going to do, because you're going to work hard, is we're going to make this one go really high with a sense of obligation. And when your obligation increases, it helps you overcome your urges. Now, that's the challenge here for a child with ADHD. They've got a lot of urges on there. And so what we're trying to do is increase the sense of obligation to overcome the urges. That's our goal here as we're trying to help them. And so I explained that to him. And they went away that week to practice this. And the fun thing was the next week, the mom calls up and says, I need to set another appointment up with Dr. Taransky. And the boy in the background is saying, tell Dr. Taransky my obligation is winning over my urge. Now, that was very important for 3 reasons. One is that I knew he got the idea. Number 2, he's practicing it. And number 3, he has hope because he's seeing it working. And that's what we need. The fun thing about working with kids who have ADHD when we're implementing this idea of obligation is that when obligation increases, then there's a tipping point that takes place when it's able to manage the urges that a child has. So very powerful for us to be able to use that one tool. It's a multifaceted approach that we use with children who have ADHD. But the idea here is we're trying to help kids grasp this idea of obligation and then work at it. Now, how do we build obligation? Let me give you an idea of a therapy exercise you can do in your home. Now, again, I believe in parents. They're the best therapists for their children, and you want to implement this therapy strategy. Now, some parents don't like the word therapy because it sounds like psychology, and some psychology is rather humanistic. But the word theropneustos in the Bible, it's a Greek word. It's a Greek word where we get our word therapy from. It's a word used about Jesus healing people. He theropneustos them, and so I look at it that way. If your child couldn't walk, you'd get physical therapy for him. But you don't just so he's getting this physical therapy. It's therapy is what he's getting. If he has needs speech therapy because he can't speak, you're going to get him speech therapy. Well, I think most of our kids need character therapy. And this character therapy is the practice sessions. That's what it is. If you have a problem walking as a child and you take that child, they don't just sit him in the office and talk to him. Rather, they take him out onto the floor and they do the exercises. Or if the child can't speak really well and they're going to do some speech therapy, they might talk in the office, but then they're going to take him out into the lab where they're going to do this work to help him understand and actually work out the muscles in the mouth that are needed for the speech therapy. The same thing's true with character. We're going to work it out in the lives of children. So let me give you a very practical example or an idea that you can go away with today, and you can run with this in your home. I call it an instruction routine, but let's do this. Let's start with the first step of following instructions, which is coming when called. Now, let me start by saying I'm not an authoritarian parent. I don't believe that all children need to instantly come when their parent calls them. But if you're having a problem in this area, you're going to do therapy. This is a therapy exercise that says, whenever I call your name, I'm not even going to tell you why. If I just say Billy, your name, then you need to come to me right away and you need to say, yes, Mom. That's what we need to do. We're going to practice that. And then you're going to do it 50 times a day. This isn't just doing it whenever you are going to give instructions. No, think about it as therapy. So you're going to add this 50 times a day. Certainly you're going to use it every time you're calling your child. If he's watching a video game, you're not going to say, son, you need to stop playing the video game and go and take those shoes to the bedroom, because that's 2 things he doesn't want to do. And so what you're doing is you first call him to you, then you send him off to do the moving of the shoes to where they need to be. Now, this particular exercise is so valuable because, and you might say, my child doesn't hear me, that's why he doesn't come. I got it. Here's the reality. A child who can't focus on their math or chores or something has no trouble focusing on a video game or something they're really into that they like. Why? Because there's desire inside of the heart that's driving them to that, and so they're eager to stay with it. But the reality is, if there's no desire, in fact, I don't want to do my chores, I don't want to do my math homework, then there's a disconnect there, because if they don't want to do it, then their brain issue starts kicking in. But if we can help them develop more self-control and more, there's 3 real qualities we're working on with children with ADHD, heart qualities. This is what I do in our practice. These are the character qualities. One is diligence, the ability to work hard. Secondly is perseverance, which is hanging in there even after I feel like quitting. And lastly, it is thoroughness, attention to detail. So a child who has a hard time with ADHD and can't do chores or whatever, these children, you just got to know, one thing you're going to do is have them work more. They really need to work more because they have to practice staying on task and doing hard work. It's just going to be one of their ways that's going to help them cope when they're doing what they need to do. So this one mom is saying, what if they don't do it or keep saying, hold on? Great question. Okay, so let's say you call the child's name and he has the wait a minute disease. That's what I call it. Wait a minute. Or they just say no. Then what you're going to do is you want to go closer to them and say, I called your name. You need to come now. Now, those words are important. You need to come now is valuable because remember, we're emulating the conscience. We're building the conscience. And the conscience says to me, my conscience says, Scott, you need to go mow the grass. And children need a stronger conscience movement inside of their heart. So we're training the conscience to be able to help them with this. So you're going to go in and you're going to say, you need to. Don't say, I need you to, because this isn't about you, okay? This isn't, I need you to put your shoes in your room. I need you to come and set the table. I need you to where it's not about you. So don't use the words I need you to. I mean, it's as if a child looks at that and says, wow, my mom sure has a lot of needs. I wonder what's going to happen if I don't do this. She's going to have an episode or something. No, this is about the child. You're transferring responsibility to the child and you're saying, son, you need to come now. Okay, and by getting closer to him and you're using the word now and you're starting with his name and you're saying you need to in the middle there, all of that contributes to a greater sense of cooperation. If you're not cooperating, we're going to practice this. If the problem is electronics, we may say, hey, we're going to have to set electronics away for a while because we have to practice this. Now, it's best to have a meeting before you start all this with your child. And this meeting is one that says, son, we're going to work on something very important for your life. We're going to work on cooperation. That's what I call it. And this idea of cooperation is very important because it's going to help you. You're going to feel better about yourself, but you're going to do better at school. Our relationship will be better as we're working together. It's going to help you be a better dad someday. It's going to help you be a better husband someday because you know how to cooperate. This is just really great stuff. So that's why we're going to work on it, and we're going to start this way. When I call your name, you're going to come right away. So that vision meeting is often helpful at first, but then it's going to be a lot of firmness and practice. And so we're going to say, this is what you need to do. And we're going to practice. I'd rather stay on the training side. If you say, well, he still won't come and he never comes, then maybe we have to go onto the correction side, which I'm not going to spend time on today. It's a valuable part of what we do, and we do have to use correction. But if we can stay on the training side that says, you need to do this. We want to have, this is something that's very important for you. And so we're staying on that side. Eventually what happens is the radar starts going up in a child's mind, and he can start hearing you better because now he's learning the I need to inside. Oh, my mom's calling me. I need to. Because you're just going to call him, and you're doing it 50 times a day because we're changing the tendencies inside the heart. And he never knows why he's being called. Don't say, Billy, come here even. Don't say, Billy, we're going out the door. We're going to eat. Don't tell him why it is. He never knows why. He just needs to come because we're building obligation. And if he doesn't have to know why all the time he's doing something. Obligation doesn't require that we know why. I'm not saying we don't tell why to our kids. I'm just saying this is an exercise, a therapy exercise. So don't misunderstand me here as I'm trying to teach an exercise here, okay? But the point is he needs to come. And sometimes you're just going to say, I just want to tell you I love you. Another time you're going to say to him, hey, I was just checking to see how your obligation is doing here. So Oh, that's great. So here's a statement. She says, also, my son says he feels at peace when he reads his kid's Bible, helps regulate him. That is so great. That tells me about the spiritual sensitivity of your son. That's a whole nother topic. And maybe you can bring it in here. But yes, so valuable that of all the 7 parenting tools that we use to bring about change in a child, one of them is the spiritual resources tool. And that's what we want to be able to share with others. So anyway, let's go back here. Practicing coming when you're called is so valuable. Sometimes you're going to say to a child, okay, great, you came. You need to take your shoes and put them into the bedroom now. And you're watching him. Now, this is very important for a child who has ADHD because he loses track. He can't hardly do that. So you're watching him and you're saying, oh, I'm watching. Or you're saying, oh, stay on track. Because the instruction routine is part of the training exercise for focus. This is so valuable. All he's doing is putting the shoes in the bedroom. But he needs to do it and he needs to report back. You tell him that. Go put the shoes in the bedroom and report back to me that it's done. So now he's staying on track. You're watching him to stay on it. He puts the shoes, comes back to you, and you say, okay, let me go check your work. Because if you go in there and you see that he has just thrown the shoes in the bedroom, well, that's not what you asked him to do, or that's not your definition of put the shoes in the bedroom. So what you say is, let me explain to you, when I say put your shoes in your bedroom, that means put them by the bed like the rest of the shoes there, and then you're free to go, okay? And so at the end, he does that, and then you say to him, son, you're free to go. Now, this is an important statement here that you're saying to him, and here's why. The conscience produces a sense of obligation. I need to. And when you do it, and you accomplish that, then there's this sense of freedom that I've done it. It's a sense of accomplishment. Take me, for example. If I have on my to-do list, mow the grass, and if I eventually do mow my grass today or tomorrow, then I'm going to mark it off my to-do list before I throw it in the trash. Because why do I mark it off? Because it's a sense of accomplishment that I have. Children need this on sense of obligation, off sense of accomplishment over and over again to strengthen the conscience. It's the equipment that God has placed inside of the heart that's so valuable and important for him. So you want to think about this is just one exercise we do. Maybe I have time. Do I have time to give you? I'll give you another exercise of a boy I was working with in my office who had trouble at school with his schoolwork and at home doing his homework. He would just get distracted, and mom says it takes him an hour to do what should be able to do in 10 minutes. Common problem. And so I said to him, he had a page with 25 problems, adding problems on it. And so I said, set it down on the desk there, come over here by the couch, and I'm going to give you, I want to ask you a question. How many problems do you think you could get done before you start getting distracted? He says, I think I could do 5. I said, okay, go do 2. So he goes, and I said, ready, go. And so he's focused, and he gets both problems done without getting distracted and comes back and reports back to me, I'm done. I said, that's great. You did 2. I'm going to send you away to do 2 more. Ready? Go. And so now he goes. It's not novel anymore. You know, he's already started working with me. That's a new thing. And so now after one problem, he gets distracted and looks up and looking around. I said, whoa, stop. Stand up behind your chair. I'm not punishing him. I'm just giving him a tactile realization that he has stopped focusing. And because of that now, it's just a physical way of saying, okay, well, I need to take a deep breath. And I said, take a deep breath, get ready to focus, and go back in. And so it's just a way of taking staying right there. You're not taking a break and going somewhere. But it's just a tactile realization that I'm not focusing and then jumping back in. So that helped him a little bit. But I said, let's identify the things that cause you to lose focus. One of them, he says, is when I look up, because my office is very distracting. So he looks up and sees things and it distracts him. I said, okay, well, what can we do about that? What can we do with your eyes? And so we decided that what he could do is he could keep his eyes on his page until he's done. And by keeping his eye on his page, then he would be able to continue on and be focused. So that was a great solution for him. Keep the eye on the page. So now he's saying things to himself, you see, which is part of this conscience and duty. I need to focus. I need to focus. I need to keep my eyes on the page. The other thing he says, I get my pencil, and we notice this, that he's twirling his pencil or flipping it back and forth. And the pencil itself becomes a challenge for him. So I said, why don't we do this? Why don't you put your pencil tip on the top right corner of your page, and when you do that, you keep it there until you're ready to use it again. So it's stuck there. And he liked that idea, so he kept it there. And what we saw over some sessions was he was better able now to equip himself to focus. We're giving him these strategies. And what I tell kids is we're building new grooves in your brain. Now, I talk about the brain when I am working sometimes with children, but certainly when I'm called in as the outside expert to work with a school team that is developing an IEP, and the parents working with me, and they say, hey, could I have my counselor come in and work with us and talk to us? So I go into that meeting. I'm Skyped into the meeting or whatever, and I start interacting with them about it. And I talk about the brain, because the brain's an important element here. But God talks about the heart, you see. And the heart is such a broader way to talk about change inside of a person. And so I like to talk about the heart, so I kind of move over to the heart and our heart-based approach. Invariably, the educators will say, this sounds really interesting. Where can we find out more about your system or the way that you work with families? Because they're interested in this heart-based approach. And I tell them it's a faith-based approach, but you can find it here. And as they do, then good things are happening for them. And it's really a great opportunity for them to learn some more. So that's just another idea. My time is up here. But let me just tell you, if you want more resources, you can go to biblicalparenting.org/ADHD, and that will provide you with some more resources. I'm just coming out with some new ones that I want to make available to you. So you can always sign up for our free email parenting tips at biblicalparenting.org. On the main page there's a whole new course I created on technology wellness at home. So you can use that. There's all kinds of resources that we have, and I encourage you to get involved in those. Next week, same time, on Tuesday at this same time, I'm going to talk about electronics. So that might be something you want to key in and put on your calendar so you can be a part of that. Thanks for joining me today. I look forward to more of these lives as we continue to interact together. Enjoy. Thank you.